All right, now that you've done the heavy lifting, you've got all your pavers installed, it's time to add some edge restraint and do some sanding.
Yeah, let's talk about the tools you're going to need to really apply those nice finishing touches.
There's a few different kinds of edge restraints that we see out there. There's plastic edge restraint and aluminum edge restraint. Both of those you're going to need to hammer in with some 12-inch spikes. You got a mallet there to do that. There's also a really cool attachment for your hammer drill that'll help you pound those spikes into the ground.
Yep. Jay, there's also, you know, a lot of guys now installing on, you know, clear base, and the preference has sort of moved to a reinforced mortar kind of edge restraint. You know, for this, you're going to need a couple different tools than a hammer, of course.
Yeah, there's a few different manufacturers of these products on the market. That some of them have fiberglass reinforcement, some of them are permeable. They're all really great. They're going to really be great for those open graded installations like Nick just referred to. It's really difficult to hammer a spike into an open graded base, and it doesn't tend to hold quite as well as it would in a traditional installation. So you're going to need maybe a mixing paddle and a mixing drill and a bucket. You could even get a cement mixer, one of those small portable ones that you can get.
Yeah, and then to actually apply the mortars once you've mixed them, something like this, our handy finishing trowel that, you know, we discussed in prior segments, that's you're going to be able to reuse that at this stage as well, and just apply that smoothly to the edge of your pavers.
Yeah, you're basically just shoveling it in place, and then you're creating a wedge shape with the finishing trowel there.
Yep.
So now that that's done, you're going to need to do some compaction.
Yep.
So you got your rolling tamper over there.
Yeah, just to my right-hand side, we have a roller compactor, and this has been such a really cool innovation. Again, you know, just something that's fairly new to our profession, and they're great devices to protect the finish of the paver, especially with some of the new kind of unique and beautiful finishes that are coming out on our concrete these days. It's really important to protect that, both in your final compaction and as well when you're consolidating the sand into the joints of the pavers. These also come in handy, Jay, when you're working on larger format.
Yeah, they tend to be a bit more gentle with your large format pavers. A diesel plate can be pretty rough. Your compactors can be pretty rough. Even if you are using a Paver Saver Mat with it, they just have a bit more compaction to them. So on a larger format paver, you tend to crack a few pieces. Yeah. The roller tamper is a bit more gentle on them, and they're faster.
I'm glad you brought up the Paver Saver though, because I mean, that is an option, right? There's a polyurethane mat that you can fix to the bottom of your your plate compactor, and these do a nice job protecting your paver finishes as well. Again, maybe not as well as a roller tamper, but doing more traditional styles of concrete, these would work just fine as well.
And now it's time to sand.
Yeah, so
you have a nice wide broom right there for pushing in the sand?
I do, absolutely. And I think, Jay, as well, this is a good time just to show a demonstration on sand here. As you can kind of see, as we're speaking, there's a nice sand installation going on behind us. But yeah, you're going to want to use a nice wide broom. You're going to want to sweep the sand in nice and evenly. Some sand companies, some manufacturers will recommend that you don't necessarily need to use a blower, but we would recommend, just as a best practice, always just using your leaf blower, giving the surface a quick blow off and making sure that there's no debris prior to activating the polymers.
Right, and you know what? If you're going to do that, Nick, you might as well compact it again. So once you clean it off, you go over with your roller compactor again and consolidate that sand. It's going to settle 20 to 30%. And then you kind of just repeat that process by filling it up again, sweeping it into the joints, and then blowing it off, and then using that blower to actually set the height of the sand. Works very well.
Yeah, that consolidation is a super important step. You know, it's not to be missed. It's, you know, you really want the sand penetrating deep down into the joint, and that's going to give you the best longevity and the best functionality from your polymeric sand for sure.
Now it's time to activate the sand, so you're going to need a hose and a nozzle, and you know, follow the practices, the stipulations on the bag, whether that's a mist setting or a shower setting, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 waterings. Just make sure you're following the instructions on the bag and get yourself a quality hose nozzle.
Some bags will tell you to mist, some to shower, some, you know, so a good nozzle is definitely important.
And some of the newer sands, maybe to our market, can actually be installed wet with a squeegee.
Yep.
And you're pushing that into the joints with a squeegee, and you're using your hose and nozzle again to kind of use as the vehicle to draw that joining material down to the bottom of the joint.
Once you've completed your sand installation, you are at that point, I guess, ready to leave the job site. But we would recommend, just for a nice professional finish, make sure you're leaving your project nice and clean. Perhaps you're just using the hose and nozzle again. Perhaps you're even, if you need a more deep clean, using a pressure washer.
Yeah.
Hot
water pressure washer even.
Yeah, and we don't really recommend that you're using an extremely high PSI at a short range, but something with a wider, broader coverage, maybe like a fan tip, something like that. Just making sure that you're leaving the project nice and clean.
Jobs are going to get dirty. It's muddy in the spring and in the fall, and you're always going to have that one guy that's going to walk over your freshly laid pavers with his muddy boots. So cleaning is probably a standard practice in every job.
And making sure that you have the tools to do it properly in your trailer, rather than trying to source them right at the end of your project, is important as well. So, Jay, with that, it's time to thank everybody for joining our discussion. We really appreciate it. We hope that we've really highlighted some of the tools that you'll find useful, and tools that you really need to make sure that you're completing your hardscape projects as perfectly and professionally as possible.
And don't forget, again, to reach out to your local territory manager and use them as a resource. And thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.